Hi there, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and I have Autumn Brennan, our teen expert as well. Welcome, Autumn.
Hey,
Hello.
everybody.
Yes. And so we're going to cover 3 steps to avoid those summer meltdowns. And this is going to be related to your child or teen that is sensitive, feels big feelings, and you're rolling into summertime wondering, what are you going to do without the structure and routine of school, right? And this is true for parents who are homeschooling or sending their kids to school outside the home. Either way, we're going to cover this today. So, welcome.
Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for introducing me, Megan. I appreciate it. As I'm listening to you speak, I am thinking about the beads of sweat that are running down many of the parents that we were speaking to's forehead, right? Just starting to trickle down, thinking about this dilemma that they might be facing right now.
Exactly. And it's not just because of the heat, right? Depending on where you live, if summer is hot already for you, or if you're just warming up here, it's important for us to notice what you might be concerned about, because when your child or teen is hitting, kicking, screaming, running away, melting down, and having daily outbursts, dealing with this multiple times a day or even multiple times a week, especially for teenagers, you might see this behavior multiple times a week where they're shutting down, and it feels like you're just pulling teeth trying to get them to follow through on things. Obviously, those issues are challenging when school is involved, right? Many of the challenges that you might be having could be related to school refusal. For example, your kiddo's having a really tough time, or your teenager's having a hard time going to school or doing their homework, etc. And so part of you might be thinking, oh, when school's over, I might have relief, but I might not, without any routine in place. Now what?
Yeah, and it's such a catch-22 because everything that you just said, we work with families all the time that are having all of the problems that you're talking about related to school, especially as those expectations start to increase as somebody moves into middle school, moves into high school. They're expected to approach school in a different way than they might be used to, right? The challenges themselves are different. It's not just a game of, hey, let me regurgitate information. They've got to be thinking about things in a different way. And they have to be using more emotion regulation skills than maybe they are used to. And so everybody's holding their breath. Oh, we only have so many days until the end of school. We get to the end of school, maybe a couple of weeks pass, giving you a vacation, and then you start to notice frustration is starting to build if you're the parent. If you're the teen, frustration is starting to build for a different reason, right? Parents are stuck sitting there thinking to themselves, well, my teen should be getting up at a decent hour. They should be helping out with the house. They should be taking care of those letters of recommendation. If you're an older teen, maybe you're taking the summer to start to prepare those college applications.
Yeah, study for the SATs.
Or maybe it's, just as simple as you were supposed to go to camp this summer, and I'm noticing you're not out of bed. Right. It's 12 o'clock, and I'm calling from work.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you start to feel helpless, right? Because now what do I do? We took the pressure away from school, and some of these problems seem like they're continuing to follow us. They're still here. They're just showing up in a slightly different way.
You're right. And this can feel really tricky as a parent, because regardless of the age of your kid, right? If you're working full time, your kid needs to go somewhere. If they are not a teenager, it can't be left home alone for multiple hours. And when that's the challenge, you might not feel like it's any different, aside from just the emotional frustration of, look, you're going to camp. This is fun stuff. we've got set up for you. You know, you've got your t-shirt, your pool bag, and everything, and here you are telling me you don't want to go, you'd rather not get out of bed, and it's the same stuff, but without the work involved related to school responsibilities. And so it can really leave parents quite puzzled, right? And we hear from parents all the time that summer, once that summer detox occurs and everybody is out of the honeymoon phase, first 2 weeks, where you're breathing differently and deeper, hopefully, or you're fine with your kid just sleeping in because camp hadn't started, and what have you. Then we roll into, wait a minute, 2 weeks is a pattern if we keep this going. So we got to start shifting some things around. And so your sensitive kid who is expressing big emotions through explosive meltdowns or outbursts starts to demonstrate this when responsibilities get put back on their plate, and the routine in sleep has changed, or routine in terms of extra time outside with friends and running around and playing in the nighttime in the neighborhood, and then being expected to come back at a decent hour so that they can have enough sleep. And it can be really, really difficult, frustrating for parents of sensitive kids in this dynamic, because you know what your kid needs, you've seen what's helped, or what you've been working on to help during those big school-related meltdowns, and now you're seeing that the meltdowns are keeping up. And so we want to focus on being able to figure out how to avoid these, how to turn this around, what you need to be focusing on to break out of this. Before we do this, I want to make sure that we're also painting a picture for teenagers, right? The refusal, shutdown, isolation challenge that many parents of teens, preteens who are home by themselves with more independence while you're working, or perhaps managing the other younger children in your home, depending on your role. This can be really tricky to navigate, and want to give your kid a break, while also working on not creating patterns that you'll have to rip out big deep roots by the time August finishes.
Right. And working with teens for over a decade, I can with confidence say that one of the bigger things that comes up for teens over summer is they just experience a lack of motivation. They experience a lack of energy. They experience a lack of motivation. They might experience anxiety. And while on the one hand, they might notice, it's my summer break. I really want to take a break, and I don't want to have these responsibilities. On the other hand, they also have a tendency to experience a lot of sadness, depression, heaviness in the body, like that just fatigue, a lot of self-criticism that comes with noticing at the end of the day or at the end of the week, I haven't really accomplished the task that, my parents maybe wanted me to, but really I wanted to. I had goals for the summer. I had hopes. I maybe did want to work on some of those letters, recommendation, or work on some of those college applications, or maybe I kind of did really want to get a job. I did want to, make a couple extra bucks, or I did want to get my license over the summer. And they notice that in the moment, maybe they are, feeling appeased, or they're feeling okay avoiding some of these tasks by playing video games or sleeping in. But that only lasts for so long before, a little later in the day, I'm starting to feel ashamed of myself. I'm starting to feel like I'm worthless. I'm starting to feel hopeless because I just did it again. I'm still stuck here. And on top of that, I know mom or dad is going to come in and they're going to feel disappointed in me too. And it might be that, in your parent-child household, you haven't gotten to a place, or it's just, not your way of parenting at this time to be screaming and yelling. And it's also true that it doesn't necessarily take screaming and yelling. You might be there, right? You might be, at the end of your rope and so frustrated that the screaming and yelling comes out, and you and your teen end up in, a lot of conflict situations. And it might also be that you're even doing some of your own avoiding as a parent, and you're just noticing, oh, you didn't get out of bed till 12. Okay. And for a highly sensitive teen, that might be enough for them to completely move into a state of just shame, right? Just to be really feeling that experience of, I want to give up. Mm-hmm. And where does that leave them? Mm-hmm. That leaves them the next morning still not really getting out of bed or moving towards what it is that they're looking for. Maybe they were hoping over the summer to even hang out with friends. Can't even get there.
Mm-hmm. And this is important when we think about how the highly sensitive brain works. Highly sensitive people have extraordinary brains, and when we think about all of the options that a highly sensitive child or teen might have in their mind for their fantastic, amazing summer, the experience of not being able to achieve that is a really, really deep gap. When you have, and you're highly sensitive yourself, so when you have this big picture goal of all these details and all these expectations, and then when you don't achieve it, there's a big pit in your stomach. Ordinary just isn't good enough, right?
Right. It's that experience of, I know what it can look like on the other side. I can create it in detail in my mind. I, have gone through the effort, the motivation to notice, what other people's experiences are that have done like things. And so, they say for every high, there's a low. Well, when you're a highly sensitive person, you experience really high highs. You experience emotions more intensely. And that also means if you don't have the skills needed to help regulate yourself, that you might go so high that when you crash down, you don't know how to get back up. When you're noticing, I don't know how to get to these goals that I'm setting for myself, or I don't know how to make this image in my head to become a reality, and I feel like I should be able to. I start to beat myself up, right? Because, I could have done that and I didn't. But as a teenager, they don't necessarily always understand why. Why do I keep going super high and super low? Why can't I get to the middle?
Yeah.
What does the middle even feel like?
And this is true for sensitive kids as well, right? In terms of being able to observe the big picture for sensitive kids in wanting things to go the way that they want them to, having these big dreams, these beautiful, beautiful imaginations, and very detail-oriented imaginations. When things happen that in their daily life that don't play into that, I had a big goal to go hang out with my friends and play in the neighborhood, and mom just asked me to fold my laundry. What? Explosion, right? That was not on my agenda today. And we know your 9-year-old isn't saying it like that. Your 9-year-old is saying laundry, blah, or nothing at all. Just complete screaming. You're the worst. I can't believe you're making me do this. No, I won't. Right. So the refusal is over laundry rather than school. And so this is the first thing that you need to be focusing on to avoid these meltdowns is really getting clear that the problem is not the problem. It's not the school. It's not the chores. It's not the daily expectations. Your child is stuck in this meltdown shutdown cycle. They are missing significant skills. And I love that we're talking about this high-low dynamic that is really important, because without the ability to slow that down, it's like the Tower of Terror. If you've ever been to Disney World, like the level of raising experience and dropping straight down, it creates a lurching body sensation. It creates a, depending on your tolerance for roller coasters, even the need to throw up. And that's not only just the full bodied experience for a sensitive person feeling like they have they've let themselves down, or that their day is not going to go the way that they want them to. If you don't have skills to manage that frustration, disappointment, or surprise, then it's like a punch to the gut.
Yeah, and it's going to keep happening, right? Because, you think about how much energy it takes to motivate somebody into action when they're ready and they want something and they're experiencing a positive emotion, it's difficult, right? And so what ends up happening sometimes for the highly sensitive teen, highly sensitive child as well, is after they have found themselves in this cycle of noticing, hey, I have this expectation, I think I can do it, and then experiencing disappointment, experiencing frustration or failure, at some point, it's really hard to get back up and even try again, because why should I?
Exactly. And there we have the Eeyore perspective, the lump on a log, the belief that this just isn't going to work out or might as well not even try. And there's always going to be another series on Netflix to binge watch, especially for a sensitive preteen or teen who is left to their own devices, figuratively and literally, in the summertime.
Right. And even if you're not a highly sensitive parent, even if you don't fall into that category, you may even start to experience your own pattern of highs and lows. Coming home from work, having expectations, being hopeful. You know what? They had their chores today. I'm sure they got everything done. I would love to get home and just go to the pool. I just want to go to the pool with my 13-year-old. Maybe you even start to get visions in your own head of when you were 13 and in the pool, splashing, throwing a ball around, and you're like, I'm so happy to get rid of work. Maybe you've got to commute because we're not in a pandemic anymore, right? So people are going back to work, coming home, and you get home, and none of those expectations have been met. And even worse, maybe your highly sensitive teen or your highly sensitive child, they're a bear. They're yelling at you, and you don't even know why they're yelling at you.
No idea whether or not they ate any food today, what time they woke up. If it was noon, it was a good day, right? But it might have been 3. It might have been 3 o'clock, and they haven't eaten at all, and that just compounds the problem. And so when we think about this as a parent, you might want to try to solve it by hanging objectives over their head. If you don't do the chores, then you won't get the Wi-Fi password. Period. End of story. Right? And teens and kids stuck in this cycle, you have to observe that they're not doing this on purpose. They're stuck in this, I did the Tower of Terror, but we can use the yo-yo, right? When you're dropping a yo-yo and you zoom it back up, there's no room for skills. There's no room for remembering skills when it happens from 0 to 60, just like that. And it's really important for you to observe that when your child is in this automatic pattern, regardless of their age, you can't be teaching them or expecting them to hold that skill capacity together if they don't know how to slow themselves down.
Right. And most of the time, especially for teens, they have these expectations that they're going to operate like an adult and that they're going to have a sense of awareness or a sense of insight, around what's good for them and being able to push themselves through that they may just not have developed. And so instead, they're really living in the moment. They're reacting based on what it is that they're experiencing in the moment. And unfortunately, that might mean in the moment, I really don't want to do that stuff yet. I'd rather play video games. I'd rather go hang out with Tommy. He keeps calling me.
We're going to go ride our bikes and hightail it out of here, right? And see you later, Mom. And then what, right? And this is the next pattern, right? Because if you're trying to be your child's own keeper in these patterns, and I'm not saying that children should just be running amok in the summertime, and they but what I'm talking about is you pulling your kid along, just like you pull teeth, and being regimented and argumentative, or my way or the highway in this in a more traditional parenting kind of way. That doesn't work for sensitive kids. You've heard me talk about this in other shows, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But the external motivation of just expecting, if you do this for me, chores, etc., then I'll do this for you. Give access to the screen or whatever, and or the Wi-Fi, or let you go to your friend's house, and some of that tit for tat, quid pro quo, external motivation communication pattern that you're having with your kid or your teen doesn't keep them in a place of feeling like they can because they want to. It keeps them in a position where I don't get what I want unless I do what my parents tell me. And that doesn't raise an autonomous and independent adult. Instead, it raises somebody who can be a task rabbit at best, or a people-pleasing workaholic, and that experience, it keeps other people in power of your child's life. And so then when you tell your kid, you need to be doing this yourself. I want to see you initiate these changes. I want to see you initiate wanting to feel better. But then the parenting strategy and tactics you're using, not strategy, it's not strategic, there's a tactics, to teach them to be responsible is, literally, biting your nose off to spite your face here. Then, your child is receiving significant mixed messages. And this is the challenge that we need to be focusing on in terms of breaking out of the pattern. These are all symptoms of the pattern that you're dealing with here. They're not the actual problem that needs to be addressed.
Right. And, as you're talking, I'm starting to think about the resentment that starts to get bred there. The I'm doing this because I have to. I'm doing this because something's being held over my head. There's certainly on both sides. That's where some of this anger or some of the conflict kind of maybe starts to develop and then just starts to fester from there, because most families don't really have, what you're saying, a strategy. They don't really have a plan outside of individual tactics that we're going to throw up against the wall and see if they stick, see if this works, to be able to get out of it. Right. So there's just repeated relationship ruptures, and that's where you really get the avoidance that starts to fall in as well.
Exactly, because, what's the summer for but a break, and so kids and teens with these big behavior challenges and stuck in the cycle really can create that cycle in their own mind and their own relationship with you as well, by saying, I'm done learning. Like, I don't even want to address learning emotional skills right now because I need a break from challenge. And when it's that pervasive, we see sensitive kids and sensitive teens alike do the same thing. I don't even want to deal with this because it's supposed to be a break for me. And you hear as a parent, I just want to be lazy. I just want my life to be easy, and I want to be weighed on hand and foot, right? Like, I'm here, and obviously your kid might not always be saying that, but they might. I can't handle it. Can you get me a glass of water? This is too much. I'm in the middle of something. Can you do that for me? Or no, I won't do the chores, etc. And that's not only extremely frustrating as a parent, because you've been working on building this skill for your kid's whole life, taking responsibility, contributing to the family, but also when they don't have the added pressure of school, then you wonder, why aren't you learning these skills now? Right. And And so this is where it's important to understand the how the highly sensitive brain works. Highly sensitive kids, highly sensitive teens alike need to learn skills through their parents. The conversation needs to still be led by you. It needs to still be not only strategically directed by you, but also your kid needs to be held accountable to learn these skills of managing their emotions through you. And that accountability can't be by holding desired things over their head in order to get it, or simply by just expecting them to already have the skill and looking at it like they're willful in their choices and they're just doing it because they don't feel like it or because school is too overwhelming. So as summer rolls around, it must be easier for them, and it's really can put you in a tight spot as a parent, jumping to that conclusion, because it can make you feel pretty helpless or powerless, thinking that now what, right? I thought that maybe we would have some time to focus on this over the summer.
Right. And, you're just kind of bringing me back to that high versus low, right? So, part of what you're referring to is, those expectations, right? Those, I'm do I want to meet somebody else's expectations and feel frustrated and feel an intense negative emotion versus how can we teach them to create their own personal independent expectations that are realistic for their environment, that are realistic for what's actually happening for them for the amount of time that they have, in a way that they are going to, pursue those expectations because they're intrinsically motivated, because they want to, right? Not because somebody is telling them you have to fulfill my expectations, but because they have their own expectations. I like my room to be straightened up. It makes me feel organized and a sense of clarity and energy. Wow. Right? Like that's intrinsic motivation. Not a screaming match over, I thought I told you to clean up your room today. That's the only thing that you had to do. How is it possible that you didn't get that done? No, you can't go to the pool with me, even though you really want them to.
Right. Right. And this is incredibly important to understand because as a parent, you might think, well, my kid's going to need to listen to somebody sometimes. They're going to need to follow directions from a boss. And I can say specifically by running 2 successful companies that a good manager hires people who are intrinsically motivated. It's incredibly draining to manage people who you have to, crack a whip about just to get them to do their job. You don't want your kid to show up to work like that. You don't want your kid to show up to work just to do the work in order to not piss their boss off, right? No boss wants to be like carrying around anger or frustration. No effective boss. I mean, the job you want your kid to have, right? Wants to lead a team where they have to be overseeing it. That's micromanagement. All right, we're not raising our children to choose jobs where micromanagement is the only thing that keeps them motivated, right? And so it's incredibly important for you as a parent to notice now is the time to teach your child these skills. Now is the time for your child to learn the skills to manage their emotions, to stop going from 0 to 60. It has to happen through you so that they know anybody else in a position of authority or mentorship, right? That's what we want, right? Or leadership is there to support them, but it is not there to do the work for them or to threaten them to get it done. Okay? Because good companies, good effective leaders run their teams with autonomous team members. And I'd like to say quite frequently in our team, and Autumn, you can speak to that. The team members that I have, they have better ideas than I do, especially when we hire experts, right? Because the expectation is that you're an expert in your position in your department. And when that's the case, that means I don't have to have all the ideas. The company might be named MTC, but it is not the Megan Show. And that's incredibly important. Everyone shows up fantastically. Everyone shows up with a skill set, and everyone's autonomous and being able to produce the work that they're expected to produce. So I don't have to run around with the chicken with my head cut off, running a team, sweeping up, making sure people did their jobs. I just expect it to be done. And I hire people who expect to do well because that's just how they live. And especially in the highly sensitive child's brain, highly sensitive teen's brain, highly sensitive kids have high expectations for themselves. And when they don't meet them, they feel like crap. And it's really, really important to understand that is due to a skill deficit, not due to a weakness in a personality trait. And it's up to you as a parent to be learning how to teach your child how to do that in a way that doesn't perpetuate shame, in a playful way, in a way that creates an understanding that this is a family dynamic issue. This is not a sensitive kid issue. Why do we work directly with parents? Right. Because it's just what works.
Right. So the parents, I'll give you the answer to that. So parents, you can get out of the loop of micromanaging your teen, how they feel, what they do, how to produce their motivation. Right? Because as Megan is saying, and being a member of the MTC team, I can honestly say part of working for a company where you aren't micromanaged means that you get to show up happy. You get to show up noticing, I want to be here.
Exactly.
And if there is nothing else that, that I hear parents want, It is that they want their teen to be successful, and part of feeling successful is being happy. It's wanting to do what it is that you're doing.
And that's what life's all about, right? Choosing your future, choosing a specialty that makes you feel happy. Obviously, what we do here at MTC, helping parents eliminate the meltdown cycle, shutdown cycle, for some families in as little as 8 weeks, means that that's just one part of the puzzle. Our greater mission is to eliminate suicidal thoughts and actions for highly sensitive kids around the world. And that's a global mission. That is a decades-long mission. We better be happy at what we do in order to survive doing that, right? And so your child's mission is different in life. They're put here for a reason, and it is not to live miserably. It is not to just live to make other people happy. It is not to just live, including you as a parent. It is not just to live to lie around and expect things to be done for them. That is not independence. That passivity is not satisfactory. It's not.
It's not satisfying. That when we think about individuals that end up in this space, I kind of went down this rabbit hole a little bit earlier, but I can't emphasize it enough, because our brain starts to play tricks on us and starts to tell us, as parents, they just want to be lazy. No, that's not part of the human condition.
Being lazy, and that's not just because I'm type A. No, people who are not type A also feel miserable after a few days of just lying around, followers versus leaders, compared to, I should say, rather than versus, still want to feel productive members of society. That has to be a belief that you have as a parent in raising a child, right? And so that you can't jump to the conclusion that your kid likes being lazy so much so that this is just how they're going to show up for the rest of their life. What's keeping them stuck is a skill gap. And we here at MTC teach parents how to break out of that skills gap. Teach kids, teenagers, and their parents together how to break out of that skill gap. All right, how to learn the skills to feel autonomous, learn the skills to feel independence, but also to know that you're independent, to know that certainly you can manage your own emotions so you can do great things in the world. Because highly sensitive children, highly sensitive teens, highly sensitive people, they are the world changers, the influencers, the creators, the not social media influencers in that sense. Highly sensitive people notice when things are wrong in society, morally wrong, or not working in a particular way, when there are gaps in emotional development in a society as a whole. They are the glue that holds society together. And that is what the personality trait is all about. But an imprisoned sensitive kid who is stuck in the shutdown cycle has a belief about themselves that they just can't, won't, don't know how. But the won't isn't because they don't wanna.
Right. They're not able to access the society that they are just a vital part of.
Absolutely. And so as you're ready to fix this problem, be sure to book a call with us here at MTC, because we know how to help parents break out of this pattern. If we can help you, we'll tell you on that conversation. I don't know. We have to be able to have a conversation. Myself or a member of my team will speak with you for about an hour. That conversation is free. You need the clarity on where your challenges are. You need the clarity on what your particular goals are, and so do we, in order to make sure that we know what to do to help you and to help you break through that. So book a free breakthrough call with us, and we'll teach you exactly what you need to do and what steps you can get started with on that same conversation. Now, if it's working with us directly, we tell you exactly how to do that so that you jump in right away because you've been dealing with this long enough. Or if this challenge has been something that has been caused by something else, right? Your kid might be sensitive, but the meltdown cycle is due to some other cause other than the family dynamic concern and the meltdown cycle that we are specific experts about, then we point you in that direction. You have the luxury of being able to speak with somebody who's been trained and been working in this field for over a decade. And what that allows you to do is have a conversation with somebody who knows what's out there, who knows what programs are more effective for people who need them, who can help you notice if an evidence-based therapy treatment would be more effective for your family circumstances. And that is incredibly valuable as well. So we're happy to do that because we want to be able to maintain our specialty, again, because that's what lights us up. That's what we're happy to do. That's what we love to do. So we only focus on that. And we're incredibly honored to have this conversation with you, and we look forward to it. How do you get on our calendar? Go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk or meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk if you're parenting a high schooler. And we'll have that conversation with both you and your teen together. And happy to support you if you're nervous that your teen might not show up, because we know how to handle that as well. So go ahead and book the call. We'll walk you through it.